Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, everybody. Saturday, November 23rd, 2024. As we come towards the end of the year, heading into the Christmas holidays, and come together as a community to go ahead and talk about those things called UFOs. Yes, today we turn our broadcast time back to 10 p.m. London time to go ahead and hang out with our friends in the UK, across the pond, and of course everyone in Europe and around the world for that matter. On that note, let me go ahead and jump to my desk and get on in. Here we go, everybody. Let's go ahead and take a look and see who we have out there for our audience right now. Okay, who in the heck do we have out there? Let's take a look. All right, live chat participants. All right, got a small audience out there today. Why would you look at that? Holy cow. Let's turn on the sound effects and get that up and going. Come on. We can get there. All right, where are those drums? Let's go ahead and welcome in Alex Park, Andy W., April R. Coleman. We've got Country Carpenter, Firefly, Kathy, Kelly Broughton, those piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. Peggy and our South Florida friends is around, along with the Chromosome Cowboy. Would you look at that? April R. Coleman is around, along with Shelly Montgomery. A bunch of people who are in the chat. They're not showing up. King Bull's around. How's it going, King Bull? Good to see you, my friend. Super Unknown is here. Who else do we have out there? Let's take a look and see. Country Carpenter, we welcomed you as well. AJ's been around. Robert Coford, welcome, Robert. I believe you're new to the chat. Welcome, my friend. Remember, anybody, if you're watching this broadcast, this is a great opportunity to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you haven't gone and check that bell, click on the bell and make sure you're set up for all notifications coming from good old me, because I tell you what, I usually put out a title card about 2 hours before a show starts. So if you want to know when the show is going to be on, we're on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays. But in case something doesn't happen or if I have extra news, be sure to check that bell and set up for all notifications. About 25%, 30% of our audience does have that bell turned on, and I tell you, it's a good thing to get those reminders, because it's how busy things are coming up for the holidays in our lives in general. It's always great to go ahead and know when, hey, we're all going to be on, for that matter. On that note, let me stop looking at the camera and let me get to the next part and welcome in our back panel today. We got a special guest today too, my friends. Let's go ahead and take a look of who we've got in the back. Holy cow. The first person we've got is a dear friend of ours coming from Southern California. It's the place he ought to be. No, it's not Faze Will, but it's Alan Lavigne. How's it going, Alan?
Great. How are you doing, Thomas?
Pretty good. And yourself?
Doing fine. Just had a little storm here in the Bay Area and moved through now, and we got some sunny skies. So
nice. Yeah, and if your camera's a little shaky or if you're having a hard time holding it, you can always just go ahead and pause the camera later on if you want, Alan. Either way, we're here for you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for stopping in today. Also, our next friend is coming in all the way from across the pond in Bristol, United Kingdom. Let's welcome in Andy W. How's it going, Andy?
Hey, Thomas. Yeah, not bad. Got a cold and the weather's wet and very stormy.
Yeah. You've got Bert coming in. Is there any sign of Ernie to go along with Bert?
Oh, I don't know. Bert's kicking some of the backsides in the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. A lot of snow up north, but we just got a lot of wet rain.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's going to be a snowy year this year, my friend.
May well be, even for us. Who knows?
Yeah, you've already had one snowstorm at least, which is early for you guys. But
yeah,
wonderful to have you here. Yeah, we got some great stuff we'll be catching up on with you soon in the United Kingdom. Yeah, there's been some great things, not really great things for the military, but there's been UFO sightings in the UK finally. First time in a long time. Yes, also coming into our friends, setting our sights back on the United States. Let's go to the man from the country where all the U's are silent. Let's welcome in our dear friend from Canada, Michael Sokoloff. How's it going, Michael?
Well, Thomas, it's snowing outside.
Oh, beautiful.
Look at that, eh?
How much have you gotten?
Well, it looks like 2 or 3 inches right now.
And it's still coming down.
It's going to snow till Tuesday or something, so.
Oh, there you go. I love that we will be turning to you for the snow reports on a regular basis, because up here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get a lot of snow, but when we do, we love it. But it looks like you're going to be getting a ton this year, my friend.
For sure. We got winter's here.
You better believe it, my friend. I love it. I love it. I'm a snow guy. I'm originally from the Midwest where we used to get too much, and the wind was cold as a witch's. Well, we're not going to go on that one, but yeah. Wonderful to see. Oh, there goes someone driving down the roads, which means it's safe to drive. But then again, everyone in Canada probably has snow tires on already.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them got 4x4s, so.
Yeah, except for that Chrysler minivan we just saw driving down the road. Thank you for coming in today, Michael. Well, if we turn our sights on the world and turn it upside down, and who do we have there? In Australia, I could say it's none of your business, which it is, but it's actually Susan Ford. How's it going, Susan?
I'm doing deliriously well. It's hot, hot, hot and sunny here.
Yeah, it's 48 degrees and cloudy. We actually have a warm front in the area right now.
Lord, it's probably going to be about 80, 87 here today.
How's the humidity, though? Low?
Oh, yeah, nice. I'm on the coast. See, I'm right on the water, so I get that sea breeze, so it's quite nice.
Do you have an extra bedroom at your house, Susan?
Yes, I do, and I have a guest room.
Perfect. We'll have to come and visit sometime. Because I tell you, a vacation for me, find a house and find a place close to the beach, and it's a place I want to be.
That's it. That's it. I love it here.
Yeah.
We've got our own beach, so it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming in today, Susan. You have your own beach, really, on the ocean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've got a pencil. I got to go find a time to fly to Australia, my friend. Absolutely.
Our local beach, where all the locals go.
Oh gosh, yes. It'd be a fun one, my friend. Well, thank you very much, Susan. We'll catch up during the show. And also, let's now turn our sights back on the United States on the East Coast. I could say it's from New York somewhere. I believe it is. Let's welcome in Tia Loreno. How's it going, Tia?
Hi. Hey, Thomas. Excited for the show.
Thank you very much, lady. Wonderful to have you here as a regular as usual. Thank you for coming in. We love having you around.
Well, thank you, Thomas. I love being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then. Yes, Mike, Disclosure has gone off for a drive in the country to bring back a couple extra cats for his house. How's it going, Mike?
Oh, it's going well, Thomas. Yeah, long road trip today. That's what's kept me busy. But yeah. I think we're going to have a very interesting show, and I want to thank our special guest, Alan, for joining us tonight. Should be an interesting conversation.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here, Alan. I know you were recently over as a special guest on the Richard Dolan show. You're a good friend of Richard and everyone. You've been a part of this community for a long time. Thank you. And you were a guest on the show in the past, and it's great. After the conversations we had earlier today on text messaging, it was great to go ahead and see all the banter back and forth regarding the things that have been going on in the United Kingdom, which we're going to be covering today. And before we get to that one, an interesting piece I want to go ahead and bring up is that coming out of the Seoul conference, we've got some great photos of that we'll share shortly. I think thanks to Michael out there for a different Michael who's not on the show right now, for going ahead and sharing it. We've got a bunch of images coming from the Seoul conference. So coming out from that, Dr. Eric Davis, I believe, was up on the stage at the Seoul conference. And one of the things that he came out and said, it was either on the stage or in the audience, not on the stage, was coming from several people that he talked about Jay Stratton going out and briefing President Trump at least one time when he was lead of the UAPTF. Now, one of the things in our conversation earlier today, Alan, if you want to bring everyone up to speed on this, is that didn't Trump start the UAPTF and kick that off as part of his administration?
Yes, it was officially announced by the Secretary of the Department of Defense in August of 2020, and they were mandated to look into the UAP situation. That was glazed over at the time. Nobody really got engaged until Senator Schumer got involved much later on. But they were tasked with going out and finding out what UAPs were all about. You also have to remember that this was during the time that Trump initiated the Space Force as well, which David Grush also was part of, and so was Lou. David was originally with the NRO, which controls all the communications, spy satellites, and things of that nature. Well, anyway, people, or at least the media, framed David's testimony last year before the open hearing at the House as like David was some lone hearsay witness. That's just not at all true. He was the lead investigator appointed by Jay Stratton to investigate the UAP situation. And he was not a lone individual. He had an entire office of investigators. They went out, did the work like any investigative team, and they discovered, the legacy programs and witnesses were coming to them. One of the things that I've written extensively about this on Richard's site for his members' site is this was all during the lockdown period. And a lot of what we believe gatekeepers, Pentagon, high brass and stuff were gone from the Pentagon. They had gone home because they were told to go home, and you had the second charge. And basically, while the cat was away, the mic started playing, and they all went to David's office and started, telling what they knew. And Eric Davis was one of the first to officially, formally speak to the Senate and congressional select committees, intelligence committees, about what was going on, about actually what was transpiring with UAPs and legacy programs, etc. And I've shared this many times in writing and on interviews with Richard, that the Senate Intelligence Committees, which includes the House and the Senate, that combines 21 people, 8 of whom are the gang of 8, the high guys, high intelligence guys there. So you had those guys being briefed by David Grush's and his 40 eyewitnesses. Now, when I say eyewitnesses, these are firsthand witnesses that brought forth documents, metamaterials, videotape, sensor data, the whole smoking gun. So you had the 21 members plus their lawyers, plus their staffers, plus stenographers. Then you also had the Joint Armed Services Committee, who was also briefed by these same 40 people. And you had the intelligence community IG and his entire office, who the investigation was handed off to, and all their people were briefed on it. So you had at least 200 people at that time. But even before it ever went to the Select Intelligence Committee, Jay Stratton, who was the head of the UAP task force, when he got David's final report about his investigation findings and all the evidence that would be presented to the intelligence committees, he briefed President Trump. There's only 2 people that were even cleared to brief President Trump on UAPs. That would be the head of the UAP task force that President Trump established, or David Grush, who was the presidential, who gave President Trump his presidential briefing each morning. So those are the only 2 people that could have briefed him, period. Yeah. Because they're the only one cleared to. And during that time, between 2020 and up to July of 2022, the cat was out of the bag. And in July 2022, the Pentagon put the brakes on and says, okay, we're taking this over. We're establishing ARROW, and they're going to be the official gatekeepers now. And they disbanded the UAP task force. The UAP task force tried to do a end run and get into Homeland Security with Kona Blue. Homeland Security said no. Homeland Security, who they're based on metrics. They have to show we've done this, we've done that. That's how their budget is formulated. Let's say just, we've squashed so many terrorist plots, or we've, done this or we've done that. Those metrics are how they get paid. Their budget gets paid the next year. If they don't have anything they can report, then, they're not going to make, a lot of budget points. So they go like, no, we're not interested in looking into what was a very Conan Blue was more on the woo side. It was more they really didn't want to tip their hand of what they were really going to be going after and looking at, and it was very esoteric. And so they said, "No, I don't think so. We're not interested." And so they backed away from it, and they didn't have a place to light and actually proceed with getting the materials and pulling back the curtain like they wanted to with OSTAP, the money of which the $21 million was intended to move Lockheed's cache of UFO bits and pieces to Bigelow Aerospace. And when he failed his first security review, they said, no, you can't get it. Harry Reid told him, no, you got to give him a second chance. Bigelow pulled more money out of his pocket. At a second security review, they said, okay, you pass. But then CIA said, no, we're not giving you this stuff anyway. So then they ended up spending the $21 billion to produce all these papers on advanced weaponry and gravitation, propulsion, all that. And that stuff's never been released to the public, those papers. But that's not unusual. There are tons of studies and war gaming and all kinds of things that are done within the government that people never see, that they're spending their money on. But now that people say, well, why is President Trump only saying, oh, I've talked to some pilots and they've seen things. Well, that's all he can say.
Which we've all heard many times, and he's talked about talking with a couple pilots, and not that he's even mentioned Grush or Stratton.
Yeah, and he can't say, oh, Stratton told me that there's legacy programs and they're stealing money and they've embezzled this and it's hidden here and we have that and, there's these, 20 alien bodies or whatever. He can't say that. Just like when his son asked him point blank, what about Roswell? And he goes, well, that's very interesting. Well, yeah, I'm sure it is, but he can't say. Yeah. I mean, he got in all kinds of trouble just for finding, classified documents that he declassified at his Mar-a-Lago estate. They just lost their minds over that and got in all kinds of trouble. If he came out now and said, hey, I was briefed on UAPs, there is, even though many people within the military circles and government circles have already said, like Carl Nell said, hey, NIH is real and they've been here a long time and we have legacy programs, all this. Luz said same thing. Trump can't say it because they'll charge him again. They'll charge him with treason, right, under in a heartbeat, because they're looking for it. It's the same with Grush. It's why Grush is keeping a very low profile. He knows what will happen. He's the most credible. He's the lead investigator for this. He knows everything. It's just that, like the head investigator of any criminal investigation, you're going to know everything. You're the head, and they want him to just step out of line. And don't think that they wouldn't throw these guys in jail. They just threw that kid in jail for 15 years for leaking information about the Ukraine war through his gaming site. And they did that the same day the Congress had their last UAP hearing. And I know for certain that was a shot across the bow. Nobody better speak out of turn, or you're going to end up with sharing a cell with this kid from the National Guard. So, this isn't new. I wrote a lengthy piece about this more than a year ago on Richard's site, and it's not from classified sources or clandestine individuals. It's out there in the ether. You can find it in open sources on the internet, and all the way back into the Trump administration. So it's not a secret. It's just that people have lives and they're busy and they don't dig down into it. It's not like a lot of people, myself included, that I'm looking. First thing I do in the morning is, hey, what UAP news is out there, and it might be a rabbit hole that I'll go down and try and see, and I might text you or Mike or Richard or somebody, hey, look at this, Yeah. So, but not everyone's doing that. They get up in the morning and go like, hey, what am I having for breakfast? Where am I going today? What time do I have to be to work? So much different.
Yeah, it is much different. Now, talking about some of the stuff that came up outside of Trump, I've got some new stuff I want to go ahead and cover. Christopher Sharp from the Liberation Times is also covering one of the things we're talking about, Alan. Let me go ahead and bring up those images here. Desktop document 3 is we've got some tweets coming from Christopher Sharp. Now, what we're talking about here is, so drones, they're calling them drones, but they don't know what they are, Alan, at this point. They're calling them drones. But we had, could be UAP or whatever, that were seen over RAF Lakenheath last night on Thursday night, according to the chatter that he's hearing. And what the interesting thing about it is, not only did they have the drones over these Air Force bases, which I believe are actually operated by the U.S. Air Force, that they deployed F-15s to go ahead and actually try and track these things down and what's going on. So let's get in a little bit more from Christopher Sharp here. An unnerving possibility is that this may be the work of a Russian sleeper cell, meaning that there is a lot of things going on with Russia right now. We've had the drone incursions in the United States, then we've had these ones going on potentially in United Kingdom, now potentially tying back to what's going on in Ukraine. What are your thoughts on that, Alan? Do you think we're looking at a Russian piece, or is it just the UAP are really getting interested as we ramp up our military for potential war in different parts of the world, that they're taking a greater interest in what's going on at our military bases? Because who knows what's there that it's actually attracting the UAP in the first place. I wonder if these could be UAP attracted to some kind of nuclear ordinance that we have at that location.
Well, UAP, okay, it's so frustrating, because if you know anything about aviation, even Russian fighter jets couldn't fly all the way from Russia over to the UK without being refueled. And if they're penetrating Russian airspace, UK airspace with Russian aircraft, and the UK has no air defenses against it, something's really, really wrong. That's an act of war. Okay. Sleeper cells, they're carrying around car-sized drones in suitcases or something, or building them out in the
right.
Heatherland there in the marshes of the UK.
Because reportedly these drones are as the same in the United States, are like the size of a Prius. They're not like small portable drones.
Yeah, it's not something you buy on Amazon. And any commercial drones, at least in the United States, they have FAA chips in them that prevent them from going above 4,000 feet. They have signals. They're subject to EMP weapons that can bring them down. And all bases, since 9/11, and I was in D.C. Shortly after that event, since that time, anything penetrating U.S., airspace is people just freak out, because you can't wait till it's over your base and explodes. The Pentagon said about the Langley incident, well, they weren't showing any hostile intent. Yeah, for 2 weeks. They were over the base every day for 2 weeks. People were filming them. And Ross Coulthart had some very good footage of that. And as you said, these are car-sized things, made no sound. And they removed all the F-35 so that nothing happened to them. Any of those things could have been an EMP. They could have been a nuke. They could have been just regular explosives. They could have just been something that a foreign state actor would want to smash into a very expensive F-35 on the ground. Yeah. It's ridiculous to think that we would allow these types of intrusions. That's what the National Guard is for. That's what the Coast Guard is for. And the UK has the same type of air defense systems and stuff. They don't just let unidentified aircraft. Try flying a Piper Cub over one of these sensitive air sites and see what happens to you. See if you're not... they just let you buzz around there for hours and hours at a time. It's not going to happen.
Now, supposedly the F-15s were flying around to try and find the drones and the operators. I have it hard to believe that they'd be flying F-15s to try and find people who are operating these quote-unquote drones.
It's ridiculous, because the signal intelligence they have on the ground would be able to triangulate within minutes where the radio signals are coming from. These drones aren't magic. They're connected with a radio signal. And it's like people talk about drones like these are a brand new thing. There were drones when I was a kid. It's just radio controlled aircraft. Is all it is.
Well, one thing to consider on this,
quadcopters as opposed to helicopters or I mean, they're regular prop RC planes. There are large scale jet RC planes, literally as big as a car that people can build and fly. They're very expensive. But you wouldn't want one of those flying over your airbase because it's certainly capable of carrying quite a bit of explosives, if not something more serious.
Right.
So they know exactly what this is. And you're not talking about just a signal ground-based radar, which paints the object and, it's right here, it's right there. You have signals data from satellites, from Hawkeyes, which are the air-deployed radar systems that have all kinds of communication devices and pick up radio traffic and signals. And you have other types of signal equipment that can paint an aircraft and actually tell you what it's made of.
Right.
The same way you can take a piece of metal in a laboratory and point a laser at it, and it'll tell you what type of metal is in there. You can do the same thing in the air.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here on this, Alan. Our United States Air Force worldwide, or U.S. Space Force, whoever it's a part of our military-industrial complex, potentially the NGO or the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, all combined together with their Ascension platform, they have an ability to go back and they have ability to track something about the size of a grapefruit, maybe up to the size of a basketball, from the surface of the planet well out to beyond the orbit of the moon. And they can go back in time. So if these are truly drones, they should know exactly where they're launched from, and more importantly, exactly where they're going to when they're done flying over this restricted airspace. So according to our government and our capabilities, it should be no mystery to them where they're coming from, what they're doing, and where they're going back to.
Well, to give you an example, we routinely track 5,000 pieces of space junk orbiting the planet at 15,000 miles an hour. Some pieces are no bigger than your thumb. These are like, eyeballs that have come off of either a satellite that's defunct or something that exploded in space. That's 5,000 pieces that we track. We know every second of every day where these pieces are, so they don't hit our satellites and they don't hit our space station or the other communication satellites in orbit. That's 5,000 little tiny pieces flying around the planet. We track that. And what's called the space fence is a large ground-based radar array that stretches for, I think, about 3 or 4 states that tracks things beyond the moon so we don't get hit by asteroids or anything else coming. That's how Oumuamua was tracked, was by the, it was first located by the space, what's called the space fence. It looks like a fence, but it's a radar array, and it just stretches across several states, and it's able to pick up things in deep space. And as we were sharing about the spy satellites, people have no idea how it's not just pictures. They can tell you so much more about what's going on because they're multi-spectrum. They look at infrared, they look at ultraviolet, they're picking up different bands of light frequencies and stuff. It's not just, it's there. And as you said, absolutely, they know where they're coming and where they're going. But if they say, hey, this came out of the Mariana Trench in the Atlantic Ocean and came over the UK, was there for 2 weeks, and then went back and landed in the ocean near the Azores or something, you're going to go, well, that certainly wasn't Russian or Chinese. So they just go like, we don't know what it was. But they know for sure. I mean, almost on a daily basis, we chase Russian fighter jets out of our Alaskan airspace all the time because everyone's, pushing the envelope and just seeing what our response time is. It's almost like a drill.
And
that happens
if you look
constantly.
what's happened here, we have USAF F-15s intercepting these objects, going ahead and potentially gathering footage of what's going on, like we're seeing in the others, in the human-to-human incursions, humans against Chinese, humans against Russia's, or the United States against it. We get the video almost, or screenshots of the video within hours of the incursion happening. At any time we have these issues going on with these quote-unquote drones and what's happening, they never release anything, which means there's something more than just drones going on in the sky. Because even if I've got the quote right above me, coming from Christopher Sharp, the UK Ministry of Defence has issued a statement now. A spokesperson told Christopher that they will not be commenting on USAF operations. It's the usual cover-up and cover-up. Are you surprised?
Oh, not at all. I mean, go back to the Phoenix Lights. We know jets were scrambled to go after that. And there was gun camera footage of that in the air, and that's never been released. So this is nothing. I can go back to when I was working with APRO back in the 70s. We had numerous incursions over Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. One in broad daylight that was a mass sighting. There was a group of school children there touring the base at the time when a large silver UFO saucer type flew over the base. And it was witnessed by dozens and dozens of people. Wendell Stevens, former Colonel Wendell Stevens, who was one of our investigators, investigated that. And there was a piece in the Tucson newspaper and on the news at the time, but people don't remember that. But this is nothing new. You can go back to Molstrom, and Molstrom wasn't the only one that had UFOs over. And yes, they do seem to be attracted by nuclear materials. I was told in an investigation, Sergeant Mooney, this was 1975, he was told he was abducted. It's a well-known case. He was abducted, and the alien leader that he talked to said that they recharge their ships from gleaning nuclear materials from these sources. That's what he was told. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it seems to make sense when you have something like Langley, when they're all like going in, they touch base, and then they fly out. It kind of looked, I've seen Ross's video, and it looked like a refueling mission to me. I mean, it really did. One would come in, hover for a minute, then fly back out the same way. The next one would come in. And then finally, the mothership, which was much larger, came in at like treetop level, touched base for a little bit, then it took off. So if someone would said, oh, they're refueling, that would make sense. Now, on the other hand, given all the witnesses over the years that I've heard, say that they've spoken to the aliens, there's two things that come up all the time: concern about nuclear proliferation and concern about the ecology.
Yeah.
Well, this is some type of soft colonization, or they do have bases on the Earth and have had for a long time. They would definitely be interested in nuclear proliferation. And if there was something particularly that damaged the ocean's ecology, they might be very concerned about that and might say, hey, guys, tap it down. Be careful because you're messing stuff up, because they're like basically stakeholders. And on the other hand, too, if it's some type of soft colonization or they're establishing bases for whatever purposes, they're likely interested in self-defense. And just like the Chinese or the Iranians or the North Koreans, they're going to look at bases and go like, okay, are they after us? What are they doing? And particularly if they're out in the ocean, like the Nimitz or during the Oklahoma incident, that certainly they're going to say, hey, look, they're right over our base. Let's send some probes out, see what the hell they're up to. And are they a danger or not? And I've been working with Richard on his book. I'm the illustrator for his book on USOs, and having
By the way, amazing artwork so far that you shared confidentially, Alan. It looks great.
Thank you. Of the 670 some cases that Richard covers in that, many times the encounters with UAPs or USOs on the ocean, the USO seemingly shut down the weapons and electronics on the ship. That could be just an incident because it's near their gravity propulsion system, or it could be the self-defense. Hey, we want to check out the ship, see what they're doing, why are they here, are they a threat to us? Let's shut down their weapons.
You're too close to our base. You're in our airspace, and it's theirs because potentially they could have been around here before man even got into the seas and like we are now, or into the air and everything else.
Yeah, I've often speculated, and I'm not the only one speculated this. Were they involved in terraforming, this planet? It seems that there's a lot of things that seem to be kind of were right at the right spot at the right time. You move anything just a little bit, and you wouldn't have life on this planet. So, did they help terraform it? Did they, light the match that got life going, or maybe a diversity in life? Who knows? Maybe they, there's even been speculation that they got rid of the dinosaurs because, hey, once dinosaurs ran around, they steered an asteroid into the planet to kind of clean sweep it and then start anew, with mammals. But that's all speculation. But clearly, when we estimate a good 50,000 visual sightings, good sightings, not just a light in grandma's backyard, but good, well-documented sightings from around the world every year, it's more than just an expedition from, another planet to get strange plants and DNA and stuff. That's a concerted effort. That's something more than just exploration.
Right.
And all these other things, to me, that's just me, and no disrespect to people in the audience, because people hold different views, but we heard these other arguments back in the 70s that they're demons and angels, or they're time travelers, or they're interdimensionals from a parallel universe. All those things are things that just keep researchers chasing their tails. No one's going to come back 50,000 times a year to this planet from the future. Why would you? What would you be doing that you had to come back 50,000 times, lose a lot of your time traveling ships by crashing them or whatever, and disrupting the timeline even more? Would angels and demons, really demons use spacecraft? I mean, really, why would they masquerade as aliens from another planet and have spacecraft and leave materials? How many times, and Dr. Gary Nolan has examined a lot of these materials. They'll drop slag that's been recovered, metallic slag, witness dropping from these craft. What demons and angels are doing this? It's another dead end.
I think what you're kind of describing, Eric von Daniken in the past has described this as cargo cult, meaning we're seeing one thing and we're attaching it to something else within our beliefs, not understanding what we're actually seeing. And I think that's kind of what you're describing.
Well, they're dead ends. If the deep state or the secret keepers who are ever hiding this stuff say, hey, look, you can't look into this. Well, I hear this about the Pentagon all the time, the Collins elite, that they're these highly religious individuals go, oh, this is religious, these are demons and angels, and we shouldn't be getting involved in this. Well, I'm a Christian, and if I knew for certain that demons were were real and trying to disrupt things it would be your religious obligation to fight them. You wouldn't be hiding from them. So I think that's just intended to pettifog the issue and prevent people from, because where do you go? I mean, do you go to Bible study to, and pray that they don't Buzz Langley again or something? I mean, no, it just prevents people from actually taking a nuts and bolts defense approach, national security approach to what is a national security threat. And people don't like to hear that, but if these were in fact Chinese or Russian drones doing this, going deep into the United States without, any defense, and just bypassing our air defenses and stuff, just flying at will, spending as much time as they want over extensive airspace, that would be a national threat. So now we've got we don't even know who these people are. They could be, some foreign state actor, or some terrorist group or a drug cartel or whatever. Yeah. Of course, it's a defense concern. It doesn't mean they're they hate us. Is the same with any of these other foreign state actors.
Yeah.
I mean, could we bury the hatchet with Russia and get over all this infighting? I believe we could. I think we could with China as well. I think we could with many access powers today. But these are people, we don't even know who these are. So we don't know what their intentions are.
And coming in from Christopher Sharp as well on this really quick, if I could, confirm that the UK Civil Aviation Authority is not answering questions on the incidents. So as per an email. So, you know, the government is, the military is not saying anything from the Ministry of Defense. Even the Civilian Aviation Authority isn't, you know, answering any questions with regards to it, which makes it definitely seem like it's something bigger than what they're trying to say it's not.
Well, people don't ask these questions, but every day the Homeland Security Fusion Centers send out briefings on a daily basis, what's going around on the United States. You have a classified one, you have a declassified one. Some go to law enforcement. They go to all the partners. It's a public-private partnership. You have domestic partners, you have law enforcement, you have agricultural sectors, you have all these different places get these fusion reports. Now, if anyone were to ask you, okay, what did the fusion report tell you today? You're not allowed to tell anybody. You can't say, oh, we stopped this many terrorist attacks, or this guy was arrested, or they defused this bomb, or this they stopped this planned bridge attack, or whatever. You know, it's like a police briefing. The chief of police doesn't come out after the briefing in the morning and tell you everything that went on, you know, what he briefed his guys on to look out for. You don't do that. And so if you ask, I remember a meeting that I had about some materials that had disappeared in a terrorist investigation. And I said, what happened to these materials? Do we know? Well, that's classified. I said, so you don't know, do you? And they told me, no, we don't know.
Yeah.
and that could very well be the answer in this case when they ask them, hey, you know, whatever defense sector they're looking at, they say, what do you know about this? They very truly may not have any idea. That might be way over their pay grade. In the intelligence world, you gather intelligence, it goes up line, and it's very rare that anything comes back down line. You're just like a hunter-gatherer, basically. You're a hunter-gatherer of intelligence. You assemble everything, whether you think it's relevant or not. Hey, this might be important, it may not be. This sounds kooky, but I'm going to bring it in anyway. And you send it up line. They will not come back and say, oh, hey, good job. You stopped this or you stopped that, or that was really important. That was the last piece we needed to solve some puzzle. It just goes up line. And someone at the top, it goes to the analyst. The analysts put all the pieces together and they develop a picture. And that's, you don't hear anything about it. So these guys down line kind of spinning your wheels to even ask them, because they're not going to tell you. They're not going to say, oh yeah, those are aliens. They're in there. They're looking for viable strains of DNA to make hybrids. They're not going to say. They're going. They have no
honestly,
idea.
if you want to see a hybrid, Alan, look in the mirror. Hello.
Yeah.
Really quick on this one. Update. We're getting more information about the USAF than we're getting out of the United Kingdom. Remember, these are bases that are operated by the United States that are within the United Kingdom. They're saying they were spotted in the vicinity and over RAF Lakenheath, RAF Mindhill, and RAF Feltwell between November 20th and the 22nd. So there's 3 bases. These were over checking things out. This confirms incidents have been occurring since Wednesday, and it impacted other bases. So it's not just one location, but it's at least 3. And if there's 3, that means there's probably more that had this going on.
Well, we know that the 1980, what's the name of it? UK's Roswell
Rendlesham Forest?
Rendlesham Forest incident that involved nuclear storage materials in Fox's documentary. He's the only one that shows it. He actually filmed the hole that was drilled through the concrete into the nuclear storage vault on the base. He's the only one that's ever shown that picture that where the light came down and burned a hole right through there, which is, again, something like that's smoking gun evidence right there. No one.
Which site was this at again? Is it Rendlesham?
Yeah, Rendlesham, the air base next to it. Yeah, go look at that. What's the name of that? It's the documentary where he covers Rendlesham, and he's the only one that has that footage, and he shows the hole that went right through that concrete barrier. We used to have those out here when the naval ordnance was stored out here near where I live in the Bay Area. They had a bunch of those bunkers, and those are you couldn't drill through that with a titanium drill. I mean, they're intended to shield the nuclear weapons against being bombed and stuff. So they're very thick, but something put a hole right through that vault into the nuclear storage area. So it's not a surprise if they have nuclear ordnance there in the UK that these craft are interested. And again, if this has something to do with refueling, that they're just there recharging, that makes kind of sense to me, that you're going to see a lot of them because they need fuel. And maybe this is a real easy way to, recharge their probes and their scout craft and stuff, rather than flying back to the mothership or getting more whatever. They have to have some type of fuel source. It's so maybe they're just recharging off these nuclear weapons and different things, because you see all kinds of interference. When Malmstrom happened, it shut all the missiles down. When they were in Russia, it turned all the missiles on. And I'm wondering, well, I don't think they were sending so much a signal as whatever they were doing to recharge their ship just threw everything into a tizzy. And one case, it shut everything down. The other thing, it fired everything up. Yeah. But it's just, hey, they were just trying to wirelessly charge their ship. Yeah. And they really didn't have any idea. Because you also see these things around uranium mines. You see them around hospitals with plutonium for their MRI machines.
Right now, have you seen this? There's been a scatter map that came up for France, and it showed all the different locations UFOs were being seen at. That included like medical waste areas, hospitals, where they're going ahead and storing nuclear waste from their reactors, the nuclear reactors themselves, military bases. So UAPs show up pretty much everywhere there is nuclear material. Now, if I could, though, on that note, Andy W. from the UK, I think he has a question for you. Go ahead, Andy.
Not really, but you brought up about the Rendlesham incident, Alan. That many years distance from now, but the events we've got going on over on the East Coast at the moment, exactly the same part of the world as the Rendlesham incident. That was at Woodbridge, and you've got Mildenhall and Lakenheath. Now, I know of those two. The Feltwell, RAF Feltwell, to be honest, I've never heard of this one. And I've looked it up, and it's only a small base, but it's got about half a dozen radomes there. So they're obviously tracking something, or, it's why this area has come up on the radar over to Mildenhall and Lakenheath. And I know of a few, there's a handful of RAF bases that are actually used by the USAF in the UK at the moment. There's one probably 30, 40 miles away from me. I know of another one that's not that well known. But certainly out of the three of those ones that happened in the recent incident, I've only ever heard of the two of them. So it's quite interesting that this third one's popped up as well.
Well, it's one of the things that interests is how these crafts smoke about themselves. I mean, what kind of signal information did they have? Go, oh, this is nuclear materials here. Hey, let's go over here. Or this is an air base. Let's go over here. They have to have some type of means of identifying these as military bases, because we just think if you looked at a military base, you'd know what it is. If you were from another planet, would you be able to tell a military base from a Walmart? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's technology that you're not familiar with or whatever, but they're scoping them out. They're doing something there, and it's foolish to believe that these things are invading airspace and not doing anything about it. When we had the Chinese spy balloon come over the United States after the incident was all over, NORAD admitted that, yeah, they knew about it when it launched from mainland China, and we're tracking it all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Well, you would think that the National Guard would have interceded and stopped it from coming over the mainland as soon as it penetrated American airspace before it ever got over dry land, but they didn't. You know why? Yeah, it's ridiculous. They seemingly didn't care. And that thing had a payload as large as a bus. Imagine what you could put in a payload as large as a bus. An EMP, a nuke, just a lot of explosives. Why would you let something like that fly over, populated areas? They were afraid to even shoot it down. They might, hit somebody. Well, whatever was full of explosives, weren't you afraid of that? So, this is a problem, but they can't. They don't want to draw attention to it, and they certainly don't want to say, "Hey, if they say we don't know where they're coming from or where they're going."
It's a lie.
It's a little bit easier than, well, of course they're lying, but it's a little bit easier than saying where they're coming and going is someplace that doesn't have humans. I mean, if they're coming and going out of the ocean or out of the North Pole or, some mountain or whatever, where there are no Russian or Chinese or Iranian or North Koreans or whatever, that's a lot harder to explain. But it's kind of mute. I mean, this is becoming such a daily thing. They just can't keep it, that close to their chest anymore. Too many people know. It's too many people know. You have these 3 air bases. A good many people on those bases know what happened. They do, and you're not going to be able to keep them all quiet about it.
No, not forever.
Yeah, that somebody's going to talk. Same with the Senate Intelligence Committees and Congress. Although a lot of these congressmen that weren't on the Intelligence Committee expressed frustration, they do know what the Intelligence Committee knew. You think some staffer went home from that testimony and didn't tell his wife that he saw, pictures of alien bodies, or that we had spaceships from another planet, locked up in some airbase? Oh, come on, please. Yeah. Yes, you have some dedicated military professionals who are going to keep the secret till their grave, but we're talking staffers, 20-year-olds. We're talking attorneys. Yeah. We're talking stenographers. Talk about ontological shock. I mean, they're just typing along and suddenly somebody pulls out, an alien forearm or turn signal off a UFO or something. This is what we've been working on. Yeah. They're just going to just go like, oh my God, I guess I shouldn't say anything. Oh, come on. You cannot keep it a secret. It's just the concerns about bringing it forward, and there's legitimate concerns. The uncertainty it would create economically worldwide. Not that, I hear these utopian ideas, we'll get free energy. You're not going to get free energy. Give me a break. Even if they had some type of matchbox-sized generator that would run your home for 100 years, they're not going to give them out for free. Somebody's going to have to make them and give them to you, and you're going to have an infrastructure to set up your house and run them. And so you're not going to get free energy, but it would just be the uncertainty about where we're going. What materials do we have? How will that impact science? How will it impact industry? How will it impact the energy sector? So it's just that uncertainty, because certainty is why you invest. Like right now, people are putting money in gold because they know, hey, this is a good bet. It's going to go up. There's only so much gold, and people are picking it up. China's picking it up. India's picking it up. So it's a good bet. But if you weren't certain about, let's say, is fuel going to be valuable tomorrow? or is this, microchips, are they going to be important tomorrow? You're like, I'm going to hold off. I'm not going to invest it. It would be very hard. So I can see why people don't want to just dump it out there, but it's going to come out. I mean, you keep hearing saber rattling about, I know I'm going to spill the beans. Okay, spill the beans. Let's hear what you've got. And we could wake up tomorrow or Monday and somebody, has, dragged a dead alien into the microphone or something.
Yeah. Talking about things coming out of the microphone really quick, Daniel Miller, SICC operative, comes out and says that mind blown that I'm not seeing this in mainstream media. It's clearly a coordinated campaign. I'm not surprised either, are you, that the mainstream media isn't covering an event like this, because this hasn't hit the headlines of any newspaper, let alone it hasn't hit any of the major news networks.
Oh, of course not. They'll do what they're told, and they're told not to cover this. They haven't covered anything. Mm-hmm. They didn't cover the congressional UAP hearing. They didn't cover the Senate UAP hearing. The less, don't draw attention to it. That's the whole thing. You don't see, no one's broadcasting the Soul Foundation thing. You got to go to the internet to find that. It's not going to be on TV. These kinds of things, like Colonel Nell, when he said, NIH are real, you would think that would be on national news. Here, you've got this high-ranking military officer, also very important in the aerospace industry, saying non-human intelligence is real and they're here. Okay, is he out of his mind? Is he off his meds? Or is that real? He says it's real. Lou Elizondo says it's real. Gretsch says it's real. How many people need to say it's real? They're not going to show you Project Aurora. Okay. They're not going to show you a TR-3B. They're not going to show you the newest stealth spy plane. They're not going to show you that. If the president does come out and say, I'm making it official, NHI are real, they're not going to show you anything still. You've come as close to disclosure as you're going to get. They're not going to say, NIH have a base out in the Mariana Trench or in the Pacific Ocean, and they've been here for like 10 decades, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. We have no way of preventing them from doing it, and they're sampling DNA, and they're taking samples back and doing these hybrid experiments, and we really have no power over it whatsoever. Oh my God, you have people freaking out. I mean, are they still going to pay their taxes? Are they still going to go to work? Or are they going to say, well, what good is the government if you can't defend us against invaders from another planet? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking 1950s. They're here. They're doing whatever the hell they want. They're not burning down cities, but they could if they wanted to. And there's nothing we can do about it. And so you're not going to make that your banner, whether here or in Russia or China or any place else. Some other foreign government might want to take advantage of it if they really don't have the whole picture. I know Japan and Brazil are saber rattling that they know more than they've said, and they're looking at disclosing what they know, but they may not have the big picture. They may not know everything, and they may not care about disabling the stock market in the United States or in Europe. But there could be an advantage if someone wants to come first to the mic. I shared this with Richard on one of my interviews with Richard, that Russia could say, hey, we found this. The Ukrainians were trying to smuggle this UFO out of Ukraine that crashed, and we caught them, and we've got it. And we're inviting scientists from all over the world to come to Moscow and take a look at it and see what they can learn. And people would be beating a path there, and they could control it very easily. And now that UFO, they may have found it in the 1950s or 40s or even during World War II. Who knows? Yeah. But they're not going to say that. They'll say, wait, the Ukrainians were trying to run away with it. We got it, and we brought it back, and we were inviting everyone to take a look at it. and see what we can get. And they would even charge them to come take a look at it. They'd have everybody on the planet trying to get in there. And that's another problem with the president coming out and saying, yes, NHI is real. As soon as you say that, people are going to ask, are abductions real? Do you have spacecraft? Do we have gravity? Are the alien reproduction vehicles real? There are going to be all these other questions that you're not going to want to answer. So they just go like, no, 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 no. Just like when Lear showed the first pictures of Area 51, it wasn't until the 1990s that they finally admitted Area 51 was a real area. Although people have been working there since 1942.
Talking about abductions, they actually brought, this is an illustration in a shot that was shared by someone anonymously, whose name I'm not going to bring up. We talked about him earlier, sharing pictures from the Seoul conference, and they're actually jumping into the whole abduction scenario, which is getting Seoul away from nuts and bolts and actually getting into potentially what these things are doing here.
I've never understood why this is such a third rail, other than the fear of the government saying we can't protect you. Of course, I mean, cartels kidnap people, put them into sex slavery or worse. Terrorists kidnap people and abuse them. It's, if you think of these aliens as just another nation, might they be grabbing people in the middle of the night and doing what they want with them? Doesn't surprise me. I don't think that's such a stretch.
Especially if they have the capabilities, and potentially if our government has deals and they're turning their head the other way for a period of time. Which is interesting, as the number of abductions and everything was going on has drastically dropped from what it was in the 70s to where it is today. And you got to wonder what kind of deal, what kind of materials are we giving to the government, potentially from abortions or other stuff that gives them the material they actually want for doing their experiments.
Well, I've heard that a number of times, that the abductions have subsided, but I don't get that impression from people I speak to. I think it's still going on. Polls indicate that it's still going on. It's just not reported. I mean, it's never been, people haven't raised their hand even in the deep past and go like, I want to talk about this. The last case that I investigated for APRO was the Betty Andreessen case, and she didn't come forward with that for like a decade. I mean, she was abducted in 1967, and we investigated the case in 1977 with Ray Fowler. So it's not like people are running to the press with their abduction experiences. Because the average person doesn't know anything about this. Even if they were abducted by a drug cartel, they would just destroy their lives. They'd freak them out, and they're like, I don't want to talk about that. And if they were threatened by the cartel, we'll kill your whole family if you talk about it, they're not going to say anything. And now you're talking about something really removed, abducted by these creatures that weren't even human. You're not going to run to the press or the police department and go like, these things came in my house in the middle of the night, or they dragged me from my car and put me on their spaceship. Just go like, I just want to forget about it. I don't want to talk. I mean, as you know, and I've shared this on Richard's show, I had two incidents, the second one much more significant, and I didn't talk about my 1979 incident even to Jim and Coral Lorenzen. And I really should have. And I didn't speak about it for decades later. I just didn't want anything to do with it. I go like, I don't want to talk about this. I mean, it really is I would say I have PTSD about it. I don't, but it's something like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want the stigma attached to it. At the time in 1979, I saw how it destroyed people's lives. They were fired from their jobs. Their wives divorced them. They had all kinds of issues in their life. Some of them never recovered socially from it. Everyone thought they were nuts. So nobody wanted to come forward. And though the stigma is greatly reduced today, it's not around being kidnapped by aliens and subjected to, medical experiments. People are not run to the mic to say it, but with 50,000 observations per year, and in Richard's book, a good 10% of the USO encounters involved lost time, which often indicates that the witnesses involved in lost time are very likely have been abducted. That's usually the case. So I don't think there's any reduction. Is the American government or governments in general, the Five Eyes, are they involved? Have they made a deal? If they have or hadn't, I would think they're helpless to do anything about it. They might have said, yeah, go ahead, do. Now, let's say they said, no, you can't do that. We don't want you going in houses in the middle of the night and do that. Would it stop them? Does it stop the Medellin cartel from human trafficking? Does it stop, ISIS from kidnapping people and cutting their heads off? No. I mean, so if these creatures truly have these extraordinary technical abilities, they don't need anybody's permission. They'll just do what they want. As Richard often says, these people seem to be creatures that are used to getting what they want.
Yeah.
Now, if we wanted to go down and grab with a special forces team some uncontacted tribe member in the Amazon and take him to a ship on the ocean and give him a physical exam, you think there's anything that would stop us from doing it?
No.
No.
There's nothing to stop us from going ahead and capturing any kind of wildlife from a helicopter, wherever, shooting, tranquilizing it, doing whatever experiments we want on it, and then to that point, when we're done, releasing it back into the wild again. And if you look at all the horrible stuff that humans do, and we're like, oh my God, how could this stuff be happening to us? But if you look at what humanity does, and they're looking at us and what we're doing, they're thinking potentially should be no surprise to what they're doing to us, because they're a higher form of life.
Well, look at the Church investigation, Senator Church's investigation of the CIA back in '77 on the CIA's use of mind control and their mind control experiments. They literally dropped LSD on St. Louis. I mean, you go like, really? Are you kidding me? All kinds of crazy experiments. So, I can't see. These creatures may not even look at us as any more than some type of great primate or something, And again, we wouldn't stop with just primates. Like I said, if we wanted to grab some uncontacted tribe member, we'd do it. We'd just do it, and we'd drop him back off, and he'd have a story to tell, and nobody would believe him. I sent Richard a picture one time when we first started talking of a tribe in the Amazon, uncontacted tribe, and they had sent a drone in to get a closer look at them. And if you could see the look on these poor guys' face, they're looking up. They don't even have metal, and they're seeing this flying quadcopter, flying above them, taking pictures of them. They're they got their bows pointed at it, and their mouths are agape, and they have no idea what this thing is. That's how the people look at these UAPs. Same thing. They're looking at, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a far cry if they're here, and they do have. At one time, I didn't believe they had bases. I thought if they have bases, likely would be the moon. It's a quick hop to the moon.
But if they're going to have something on the planet, Alan, where's the safest place to go? Because every 12,000 years or so, there's a great flood that happens and wipes the surface clean time and time again. The safest place to go, honestly, is below the bedrock underneath the ocean, because it's got so much force coming down on it. It's not going to be moving. It's a place that they can go to for security and safety from the humans who like to throw nuclear missile bullshit at their neighbors.
Well, not just that. It's safe from solar flares. It's safe from asteroid impacts. It has a lot of opportunities. Again, at one time, I believe that these giant UFOs, these giant triangles and mega ships like the Phoenix Lights and stuff, I was skeptical. I thought this is some type of gravity field illusion, that it's magnifying the size of the ship. Gary Nolan talks about an incident where these people were in their car, UFO was above it. They photographed it, and when they developed the photograph, it was just a tiny ship.
Right.
It wasn't the big ship they saw.
And
I go,
Elizondo
yeah,
has talked about in the past that that people in the military have seen it was a football field sized UFO coming, a triangle ship coming up out of the water right next to an aircraft carrier and then shooting off instantaneously into the sky. So that's been out there in the dialogue. If I could really quick, Michael Sokoloff has had his hand up for a while for a question for you, Alan. Michael?
Sure.
So, Alan, what's your take on, do you think that the NHI would intervene if we had a major nuclear exchange?
No. Why?
And why
to their
not?
advantage. They'll just, when it's all over, they'll just clean it up. Why would they interfere? Why do they care? I mean, would they interfere if there was an asteroid about to hit the planet? Oh, no, they haven't. How many times has that happened? We know across the Ohio River Valley, there was about 5 midair explosions about, I think the estimate is like 50,000 years ago. Wiped out that entire area. They didn't do anything then. They didn't, prevent the dinosaurs from being wiped out. So why would they care if we had nuclear exchange?
The reason I ask is people are saying that they've intervened in our development, but they won't intervene in a nuclear exchange. Like that doesn't make sense. Why would they?
No, it does. It does, and I can share why. In our investigation with Betty Andreessen, they told her point blank that in the near future, humans would not be able to reproduce, so they were preserving our seed. Now, if you look at the population decline from 67 to date, it just drops off the cliff. And there's all kinds of reasons, from excess deaths to infertility to just particularly in the West, generally very sickly, frail population with all kinds. Now we have 77 different type of metabolic diseases across the modern West. So they've got their library of DNA. If they want to kickstart it again, they can probably do better. Well, if they're hybrid experiments, this isn't their only. I guarantee you, if they are star voyagers, this isn't their only base of operations. This may be, as many people have shared, like a farm where they're growing this stuff. And if they're already stockpiled, well, they may be just trying to discourage it. And we've heard them say this, hey, don't use your nukes.
So if they're collecting human DNA and our seeds and all that stuff, what about all the other animals on planet Earth?
Well, we've seen them collecting samples from all the other planets on the Earth. We talk about animal mutilations, or we always talk about cattle, but NOAA has even reported whales found dissected in the same manner as we found cattle. So it's not, and other wildlife, wolves, ferrets, all kinds of animals have been found mutilated in the same fashion. They always pick on cattle because cattle has a value, and someone's, you're talking maybe $1,500, $2,500 a head of cattle. No one cares if a wolf is dissected in the middle of nowhere, but cattle, yeah, that's something that's going to bring people's attention to it, and it's also a felony. So you're going to get law enforcement involved in that. So that's why you hear about it, but it's not an isolated case. So and routinely you hear about them collecting moss and foliage. And in fact, in Richard's new book, there are a number of cases where aliens are outside these USOs and collecting materials, plant, what appears to be plant life or moss or whatever. So
Thanks for that,
do have.
Thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Corporal Abe, you have a question as well.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good evening. Two-part question. One, in 2010, there was a 1,500-page document released by the Pentagon that referenced alien hybrids and sexual encounters. Why do you think this isn't getting as much steam in the media as, like, I don't know, the election? And my second question, actually, I just forgot it. So.
Well, the first question is really easy. Why, the media is helping. The election is about who's going to control the narrative. Okay, so that's essential. Anytime you're trying to, let's say, put security measures in place, you start with headquarters. You have to secure headquarters. The election is basically securing headquarters. Everything else is incidental. That's not going to get any play other than in the community interested in it. And I remember that paper that there was a very good genetic information and how this they were talking about, because you can't really crossbreed different species, but they were talking in that paper about how and why you can interbreed with these alien species. And so it's very detailed information, but no, they won't even report on these military installation incursions. They're certainly not going to talk about alien hybriding. Yeah. Again, that would freak everybody out.
Do you see the lack of?
They don't even want to hear there's a rapist in some. If you have an incident where you have some crazy rapist running around a neighborhood, everyone's freaked out and they're locking their doors and they're all out of. Imagine if they said you got aliens running around collecting DNA. People would lose their friggin' minds, and I don't blame them. I
agree. I agree. I do. Do you think the lack of transparency is a national security threat? Like, just with this particular topic, the hybrid theory, the 1,500-page document not being in the media and in the public's eye.
I can compare this to national security from Homeland Security standpoint and terrorism and stuff. Like I said, the fusion centers send out briefings every day to the different Homeland Security partners. And you look at some of that stuff and you go, wow, I can recall, this has been many years now. I remember one time here in the Bay Area, in 1 week's time, with Homeland Security and the FBI, we foiled 5 different school shooting attempts. These are 5 separate plans, 5 separate people that were going to shoot up these schools, and we stopped in 1 week. That never got to the media. And at one hand, you want to say, oh, that would be a good pat on the back and show everyone's earning their pay and look at what we just protected you from. But then again, you go like, if people learn that there's that much out there, they're going to just lose their minds. And I've been to schools where I've had, parents and teachers arguing about the physical security of the school from either a terrorist attack or school shooter or whatever. And it's very heated. And I understand both sides. And so, again, if you take it to just replace aliens with ISIS or Al Qaeda and say, okay, how transparent should we be that it's possible ISIS can come in your home in the middle of the night and kidnap you? That there's that many ISIS affiliates in your neighborhood, and at any time in the middle of the night they could come and kidnap you and do experiments on you. You go like, well, people should know, so they'll lock their doors. But then again, what's the blowback going to be? Are they going to freak out? Look what happened with COVID. I mean, you knew right early on that 84% of the people that even got infected had no symptoms at all. Only 15% showed symptoms, and less than 0.5% actually died, and they were over 80. Yeah. But what I still here in the Bay Area, you still see people in their cars with masks and rubber gloves.
I've seen it here too, driving around sometimes. It's just one of those things they've not realized that this thing has changed. It's evolved beyond the initial strains that came around, and that danger that was there initially is kind of pittered out to a degree. Now, I do have a question coming.
Sure, go ahead.
I do have a question coming in from the audience. Where did that go? I had it up here a second ago. There were two here. This is coming from Terrence Wills. He's asked us a couple times. Allan, sure. What 2 questions would you ask to get us to the truth?
Who's in charge? And how much money have they stolen? Because I've said this before. Stealing from Congress is like stealing from the mob. They will never forget.
Nope.
The Pentagon just failed their 7th audit. Everyone wants that money. Those are programs that were denied. Okay, for domestic purposes, for all kinds of special programs and stuff. If you find out who headed these programs and you can establish a financial chain, they took this money that was supposed to be for F-35s and they spent it on ARV that they're using to smuggle drugs in Asia or something, they'll hang them from the highest yardarm. So those 2 things, a name and a dollar amount. If you knew for certain they have squandered, let's say, just $1 trillion over the last 2 decades on these, they stole it. It was supposed to be for this, and they spent it on that. They lied to us. Oh, the Congress will never forget that. They'll never forgive that, and they will go to jail for it. Absolutely. So, but they need to be able to prove it, and that's what the IG's office has tried to do. It's very hard to get into, particularly when you have private firms involved, to get into how they spend their money, their bank accounts, and how money changed hands. We've seen that in a lot of recent political investigations where you look at, okay, where'd this money go, and how do you end up with gold bars in your suit jacket? It's a very murky trail. It's very difficult to you follow the money, but that's what you have to do, is follow the money, get a name, put the pressure on them, bring them in, say, okay, we know you're into us for $1 million. You've been, pulling out this salary, illegally. Now, you either turn state's evidence and you tell us everything that's going on and name your co-conspirators, or you're going to, Colorado Max to a 8x8x8 cell with 1 hour in a court walking around. We're going to slide all your meals under the door. You're going to be the rest of your life. That would straighten them up. But you need a name and you need a dollar amount to do that.
Yeah, interesting points altogether, Allan. Disclosure is so coupled with government. Unfortunately, in government and politics. One way we've seen Congress trying to get things to move forward. There are people in Congress right now who are in the House of Representatives who are moving to try and get a select committee put together on UAP. Now, I appreciate what is going on in Congress, but I think if we really want to get disclosure, do you think, Allan, that we need to have someone from the executive branch, like a president, who supports it as well to get out the truth, or are the 2 completely separate from each other?
Oh, it would be very helpful, to have the president come out and say, yes, NHI are real, Carl's right, Lou's right, David's right, it's true. But as soon as he says that, you're going to have other world governments go, you've got spacecraft? That belongs to the world. It doesn't belong to the United States. We want a piece of it. We want our scientists to go in and look at it. Now, who do you say no to? Do you say no to the Russians? Do you say no to the Chinese? Do you say no to the North Koreans? No, you can't look at it. Only the Five Eyes can look at it. That's the problem. And there are some countries, I think that you've got to speculate that there's some countries go like, man, they've got UAP tech. They might use it against us. We better preemptively do something about that.
Right.
So that's a concern too. But eventually, they're just going to have to let the cards fall where they are. They're going to have to play the ball where it lands. And I think that's coming with the Trump administration, that they're going to say, yes, NHI are real, but they're not going to say much more than that.
Yeah.
They're going
I mean,
say,
but
yes,
if you look at the statements that came
real.
out from John Ratcliffe right before right after he was out of office, he gave more information out about UFOs in his interviews with Fox News than we've ever gotten coming out of the Biden administration. And now he's coming back in, I believe, to head up the CIA, which is really in deep covering this up. So it seems like the cards are falling into place potentially to try and get us disclosure coming from the administration, hopefully.
Well, I would disagree with that slightly. I think Jesse Marcel, who I interviewed for the first time in 1978, told more than anybody, than Nell or Ratcliffe or Lou or anybody has. I mean, he was very specific about what happened, and he was the head of the only atomic. He was the head intelligence officer of the only atomic air wing in the world at that time. And then you had Colonel Curceau, who, although wasn't right on everything, when you really parse it down, you have to remember he was an elderly man, very ill, and he had a ghostwriter writing everything up, but his son still retains all his documents and portfolios and everything. And if you've ever heard him speak about it, there's just a library of information that could be released, who he spoke to, what companies were involved and everything. It's all there. Yeah. And so that information could be acted on. It's just a matter of the will to do it. Yeah. And again, you have that economic concern. How is this going to affect worldwide economics? Who's going to want a piece of it? Again, you can't just say, yeah, we have a UFO. Everyone's going to want a piece of it. It's like moon rocks. We gave moon rocks to everybody, friend and foe. Everybody got a moon rock. Yeah. That was, one big step for all mankind. And we gave everybody a piece of it. And the same thing would happen we've got to, it wouldn't surprise me that there's little left of the Roswell spaceship because they get pieces out to everybody or something.
Pieces out to everybody. Absolutely. Yeah. Corporal Abe, you have your hand up again, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Alan. Hey, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin recently in a press conference acknowledged UFOs. How significant is that? What's your assessment of it? How should the public react?
Well, way back in 1952, the Air Force acknowledged UFOs. They just said they didn't know what they were. They haven't said anything differently since then.
No, but if you remember, the Space Force came out about 1.5 years ago, and they said, yes, UAP are real. They have incursions to our military airspace on a regular basis. This is not a problem that's just for the United States. It's a global issue, and we're working with our partners around the world to try and figure this stuff out. So we had more information come out from Space Force than we've had come out from RO or the Air Force or anybody else.
But the Secretary of Defense, that's a different level.
That's not the Secretary of Defense. That was one of the colonels from, or the generals from Space Force who made that announcement.
Yesterday,
yeah.
Yeah, yesterday, Secretary did.
I've seen that cut put against 1952 briefing after the Washington, D.C. flyovers. And it's almost word for word the same thing.
Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube. There's like a mirror image of the two talking about it.
Well, I do have that little video clip here. If you humor me in playing this really quick, let me get this up here. Let me find this document 3. Let's go ahead and bring up Lloyd Austin talking about he's got a briefing going in Laos when this question he's going to be asking specifically asked about UAP. Here we go.
Thank you so much for doing this. I hope you're okay with this question. Aero Chief Dr. Kozlowski testified on the Hill today about the open UAP cases. I was wondering if any briefings have reached you on that, and in your career, if you've seen UAP threaten national security, and the progress that the office has made under your leadership.
Well, I've quite frankly, I've not seen any UAP incidents that I would categorize as threatening non-security. There are things that happen, that have happened, and probably will continue to happen that are difficult to explain. And so when we encounter things like that, we will go and investigate those things because whether it's some really unexplained phenomena or it's just something that is explainable, we just have to get to the root cause. We've organized our effort to ensure that we can methodically identify and assess these incidents, and I want to thank Congress for continuing to support us with the resources that we need to be effective. But.
So an answer,
Thomas,
Alan, but not an answer.
Well, Thomas, if you can go, I don't know what access you have there for YouTube. If you go on YouTube and pull up the Air Force speech after the 1952 Washington, D.C. incursion, I forget the general's name, the Air Force general's name, and play that. It's about the same length of clip. I don't know. Can you access that on YouTube from where you're
let's see if I can find it really quick. Let me get to a browser that I can bring stuff up here really quick and see if I can.
Can't think of his name offhand. He's a famous. Say they're smoking while he's talking to the press.
1952
Washington D.C. flyover.
See what I can find. So I have one coming from a general in December 31st, 1952. Would that be it?
Probably, yeah.
All right, I've got a video clip here coming from the National Archives. Let me go ahead and download this really quick, and I'll bring it right up. Not that one. Hold on. Let me get to my downloader here.
How can the SecDef say the Langley incursions are not a threat?
Well, he did. It's just, no one's going to push back because no one's going to say, well, what if they were filled with explosives?
Yeah. Okay, I've got a video here from the National Archives, the one you asked for, Alan. Let me get the other ones out of the way here. Make sure it's big enough. Let me go ahead and play it. All right, this is a 5-minute video. Here we go. Coming to us from the U.S. National Archives, which means it's the public domain video. July 29th, 1952. Look at stuff. Oh, it's a UFO. It's a flying saucer. Camera check. Just waiting. We'll get this in.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States. Is that?
You didn't say enough. We need more. From going in the background.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States.
So there you go. And in this stuff, I'll unpause it in a second, Alan. They're going ahead and saying it's not us. What's going on? It's not our things. We're seeing this stuff, and we're not. It's not our adversaries. It's not the United States. And the consistency of what they're going along doesn't align with what the humans are doing, and what the Air Force has been saying since this time in 1952 is they don't consider it a threat to national security.
Yeah, it's if you'd taken his prepared statement and given it to Lloyd Austin, there's really not much difference.
No, there isn't.
No. Yeah, they're just, just deny. We don't know what they are. They're no threat.
Yeah.
Really? Really?
I've got a little bit more of his statement here then. Here, let's play the rest of this.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
Which seems to be an excuse they're using today, saying all this stuff that you're seeing, it's our technology. You're reporting on a black program that you shouldn't be even seeing in the first place. So it's that same. Them. Here they're saying it's nothing to do with us. It's not any of our programs, but it seems to be a common excuse these days, Alan.
Well, it's a common excuse by researchers. I've heard many podcasters and researchers, investigators say, well, Kirkpatrick said the Tic Tac, it's probably a black project. No, you have deconfliction, battlefield deconfliction legislation where you're not supposed to fly these secret programs in known exercise fields and stuff. It's not secret tech. If we had that type of technology, you'd think we'd be wasting money on F-35s. It's ridiculous. Of course not. Kirkpatrick, I heard say that, and I've heard a lot of people say, particularly debunkers, say, "Oh, these are black projects." You don't fly black projects over urban areas.
No,
you don't. I mean, what the heck? I remember there was an F-117 that crashed somewhere in the New York area back when they were testing those things. They sealed that area off so quick. It was such a mess. It was horrendous. It was an accident, and it's so rare. You don't fly these types of experimental aircraft or any type of technology over an urban area because it's experimental. And the fact, what's her name, who wrote that book recently saying that the Roswell was a Stalin's plan to crash mutated kids. It was just, I can't think of her name right now. It was a crazy idea. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't know the name of the person, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Saying that what the little grays that they got out of the Roswell crash were actually like midgets or something, and it was all from Russia, right?
Yeah. It's we know from documents that that were revealed after the Cold War, that the Russians were very interested in what had happened at Roswell. And they had agents all over, near the Roswell base. Again,
was that Ann Jacobs, maybe? Rough Ready saying?
Yeah, Annie Jacobs. Yeah. I can't believe that. Again, it was a remote controlled drone. Really, back then you flew. How did it fuel it from Russia to the New Mexico? I mean, again, it's just a ridiculous idea. But anyway, the Black Project, again, she's one who often says, stealth. A lot of these UFOs were stealth planes being tested, like B-2 and the SR-71 and stuff. No. Okay. In fact, again, working with Richard on his book, we were talking about how high, because you get a lot of witness descriptions of UFOs. Oh, it was 100 feet in diameter and was 23 miles away. You can't see 23 miles away. The curvature of the Earth prevents it. You can see about, if you're standing on level ground, you can see about just under 3 miles away. So you can't see 23 miles away. And I gave Richard a picture that we know exactly. It was from an airport, a particular type of camera that shows the distance of an airplane in flight coming in as it's landing. It's a special type of radar. And I showed him what a 120-foot plane looked like at 800 feet. And it's barely a dot in the sky. Okay, it's you can make out it's an airplane, like it's a cross in the sky, but it's so far away you can barely see it. Now the SR-71 flew over 30,000 feet. Who's going to see that? Yeah. No one's going to see that. That's why it's stealth. Stealth is stealth. They don't fly these things so you can see it. That's a UFO.
Right. And it's not like we have craft, Alan, today that when you go ahead and fly it, that it's invisible to the human eye, that it doesn't show up on aircraft, but the only way you're going to be able on radar, but the only way you can see it is if you have a camera that can go down to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Clearly, that's not human technology.
Well, if it was, let's say, okay, if it's invisible, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Stealth is stealth.
Right. But if you have a camera that can see down to -60 degrees Fahrenheit, which costs about $12,000, then you can see some of the stuff. But again, it's not our stealth technology.
Well, again, if you have I was just looking at this online today, there was an advertisement for an AI telescope, so you can track, different astrological things and stuff. And if you have a highly advanced telescope unit and stuff, you can see all kinds of things in flight, satellites, and there are, military projects around the Earth from not just our country, many countries that you can spot up there. But you're not going to be walking your dog in the middle of the night and see a triangle with 3 lights on the tips and a red light in the middle flying at treetop level over your backyard.
No.
And I must have seen in the last year a half a dozen videos like that. Yeah. And they're always, I went outside to take a smoke and walk my dog at 3 a.m. And I remember one particular was from Texas. It was a great video. This thing is so close to the trees. The trees are like vibrating from it going over. It was clearly it was clearly an amateur film. It wasn't AI or anything like that. We get so much of that now. He was just at the right place at the right time and used his, cell phone to record this. It was so close. It was really ridiculous.
And I agree with you completely. If it's a black program, our government isn't going to be taking this highly secretive craft and putting it out there over residential areas where people could be out there walking their dog at 3 o'clock in the morning, smoking a cigarette to go ahead and see this thing. So it definitely goes beyond what we've normally had. Now, I do have a little bit of this video clip here as I have to go use a little boy's room. I want to go ahead and play the rest of this clip here. Let me get this back in here. I'll play the rest of this, and I will be right back. We've got a minute left of this video. I think this is Kehoe, isn't it? Who's going to speak now?
That's not the general Keyhole. I don't know what video you're looking at.
It's the remainder of that video. We had the one general who was talking, and now someone else is going to come on and talk for about another minute. Let me play this little part of the clip.
That could be Keyhole because he was heading the UAP trying to get a hearing together.
All right, here we go.
Watch me for the signal there, sir. Start.
I'll start when you throw it down.
Wait a minute. Hold it, boys. Everybody ready?
Yeah. Major Keyhole, as author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, what is your opinion of these new sightings of unidentified objects?
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin. During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance and high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.
There you go. That's the rebuttal we all wanted to hear, Alan.
Yeah, man, how different is that from what Colonel Carl Nell said or from what Lou said?
Not much.
Yeah, and you know, again, you know, they keep moving the goalposts on what's disclosure. Now, if the people that have made the statements in the last year had made those same statements in 1960 or 1970, that would have been disclosure. We would have considered that, oh, we're not alone. Today, it's, no, you know, I want to see it on TikTok. I want to see it on Facebook. And you're not. They're not, secret is secret. And they're not going to show you this stuff because it tips everyone, tips your hand. Like I said, you're not going to see Project Aurora. You're not going to see the TR-3B. You're not going to see the latest stealth spy plane. And they're stealth for a reason. Stealth means you can't see them. You know, they're secret. They fly where you can't see the darn thing. So yeah, you're what people are seeing are not black projects. They wouldn't be black projects if you could see them. So that's why I disagree with Annie Jacobs. I'm sure she's very well-meaning and she trusts her sources, but we know from CIA documents that they plan to use UFOs as a diversion. You know, hey, say it's a UFO. You know, they said to use ridicule to you know, keep people from talking about it. Ridicule is our strongest, you know, weapon of mass destruction. I mean, you start ridiculing people and they're just not going to come forward. You asked about alien abductions. If people feel they're going to be ridiculed, they're not going to come forward. They don't want people laughing at them and saying they're crazy and, you know, upsetting their whole life, how it's going to affect their work and their relationships and their standing in the community. So yeah, that's not a surprise. People don't want to talk about just being kidnapped, period. I knew there was a good friend of mine who was in South America, a female who was kidnapped. She didn't want to talk about it. I mean, she had a very rough time. And when she came back, I knew she was coming back to the United States. I go, she's not going to be the same. And I don't know mentally how she handled it, but I never delved into it and never asked her any questions about it. And she never talked about it. So that was just humans, you know. You get picked up by some creature that's not even human and for some spaceship and you're experimenting on, not likely to want to talk about it right away. It's not something that you're going to bring up at the Thanksgiving, you know, dinner table.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could, I want to go ahead and thank the people for coming in, giving us some super chats tonight, Ali Albion and Firefly. Most importantly, I want to thank Alan. Thank you for coming out today. It's been a great show, a great opportunity. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to share with our audience, or are you pretty good?
Well, you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, the next shoe to drop. You know, every day I get up, like I said, the first thing I do is check and see if there's any new UAP news, and there always is. Every day something new is coming up, and you know, I'm just waiting for that next shoe to drop, and I think we will have some big Easter eggs here in the next, you know, 12 months. I really do.
Yeah, so, I really hope so, my friend. I really hope so. If I could, I want to go ahead. And where is that at? God, things have changed.
Also, too, if I may shamelessly plug Richard's book.
Yeah, please do.
We hope to have that's going to be a 3-volume set, over 1,500 pages, almost 700 cases. Most of these cases people have never read or heard anything about. He's got all the, he's crunched all the data from these cases, maps. I've done almost 200 illustrations for the book.
Wow.
Like I said, it's going to come out in 3 volumes, 500 pages per volume. We hope to have the first one out very shortly. I'd love to say Christmas, keep my fingers crossed, but that's probably hopeful thinking, but very soon. And then we're going to release the subsequent volumes, hopefully in 2-month periods. You know, the first one come out, then 2 months later, the second, and then finally or the third. And it's going to be the largest book of its kind, or volumes of their kind, that have ever broached this subject, and certainly the most illustrated. There's nothing really going to be able to compare with this previously, and it's really, I believe, going to change the subject, because everyone's talking about in the air. Only recently people have been talking about the ocean, and this really digs down into that. What's going on? About a third of these are military encounters that people have heard about. It's really fascinating, and some of them I can tell you, the stories are going to blow your mind.
Yeah,
they're really from freshwater lakes, from reservoirs, from rivers, all over the place. They're really remarkable, and people I think are really gonna love this book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to go ahead and cover it on the show once it comes out. Now, if I could, I want to go ahead and thank everybody in our chat, because the chat is where it's at. It's a great place to be a part of our community, and it's a great place to go ahead and share your thoughts with the show. And if they're good, I'll bring up during the broadcast. I want to go ahead and thank AK, Andy W., Attorney of the EBE, is good to see you, Mike. Country Carpenter, Distant Dark Ice, Firefly, Gene Splice, Kathy, Kelly Brotnels, Piercing Blue Eyes, good to see you, Kelly. Overlander BC, Paul Damon, Rich Buddy, Robert Coford, Roland Gibbs, Rough Freddy, Stargazer 46 and 2, Terrence Wills, Terrence Bunce, Tets, Trent Allgood, and Wildcat Mahone. How about that? More importantly, I want to thank the friends in the back who have had some questions today, including Andy. Andy, thanks for being part of the show.
My pleasure, Thomas. Yeah, thanks. And Alan, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been really interesting.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Also, want to thank Corporal Abe. Thanks for coming out and your questions today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thank you, Alan. Great show. Can't wait for another.
Also want to thank Michael Sokoloff. Thanks for your questions tonight, my friend.
You're welcome, Thomas. It's getting dark out here and very snowy, and thank you, Alan, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and Alan, again, thank you for coming out, for being part of the show. I appreciate you stopping in today and being part of the broadcast. And as we usually say at the end of every broadcast of Disclosure tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone, but...
Go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. Hang out for a second, Alan. We'll catch you all later. Bye-bye. Thank you.